Hey everybody, welcome to Visually Hidden Selects. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Jaws. It's a movie based on a book written by Peter Benchley, published just a couple years before the movie came out, but the novel is very different from the movie, and this is one of those cases where the movie might be better than the book. But they're so different, it's like night and day, you know? It's really like taking these characters and putting them in an alternate universe. I can't even remember the first time I actually saw Jaws. It's one of those movies that's just been there my entire life. I feel like I was raised by my parents and this movie. I've seen this movie well over 100 times. It's one of those movies that has a high rewatchable quality, and since it was with me from such a young age, you revisit it throughout different times in your life and you get different things from it. They filmed it in Martha's Vineyard, which is in Massachusetts. It's a little island off the coast of Cape Cod, and that whole area is kind of timeless. Like if you were to go to Martha's Vineyard today or Cape Cod, the architecture, the buildings, the scenery, it looks pretty much the same. I mean, aside from like cars and hairstyles and some fashion, it's pretty much the same place. One of the main strengths of the movie are the sincere performances by the cast. Like, these characters are very believable. The protagonist in Jaws is Chief Brody, played by Roy Scheider. He's also just a very relatable character. I mean, he's the one who leads you as an audience member into this story, so he has to be relatable, he has to be likable. You know, watching it as a young person, he might remind you of your dad, or he might remind you of your uncle. If you're watching as an older person, he might remind you of yourself or your best friend. He's so much a normal person, you know? He's not The Rock, he's not Jason Statham, he's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's just a regular guy trying to live his life, cast into this extraordinary situation, and he has to figure out how to handle it. On top of it, he has fears. He's afraid of the water. He's afraid of the shark. But circumstances arise during the course of the movie that make him face those fears, and that in itself is attractive to an audience. It gives you a sense of empowerment. It makes you feel like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to go fight a shark per se, but maybe I can, you know, take on the things that I'm a little afraid of. And that's what I think makes Chief Brody just a very relatable character. He's coupled with two other characters that kind of round out this trio of main characters. Matt Hooper, the oceanographer, played by Richard Dreyfuss, and Captain Quint, played by Robert Shaw. In addition, he seeks out answers. He seeks out support, whether it's from his wife, or Matt Hooper, or Captain Quint. He's a person who's also a team player, so I think that also makes him a little bit attractive to audience members as well. It's one of those the sum is greater than the parts situation, and I think Brody, while he brings a lot to the table, no man is an island, even if they live on one. As you watch a movie throughout your life, you see things differently at different times, and you have, you know, different things in the movie speak to you in different ways at different times. When I was a small child watching it, I loved watching the shark come out of the water. When we first see the shark and he pops up behind Brody and he says, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." You know, that was awesome. But then, you know, as I got older, I would probably have to say my favorite part of the movie now is the Indianapolis story, when Captain Quint delivers the story about his experience on the USS Indianapolis. And it comes very late in the movie. It's like at the end of the second act. But that story gives you all the backstory you need for that character. Prior to that, Quint is kind of this crotchety old man, you know, who's just angry at the world. But after that story, you understand exactly why he's on that boat and exactly why he can't stop what he's doing, just like the shark can't stop. And it's from the Indianapolis story that you really understand that character. You know, watching this movie as a filmmaker, it was a very difficult movie to make. You know, shooting on the ocean is not easy. Using practical effects and practical creature effects is not easy. So, from a filmmaker's point of view, It's one of those perfect storm kind of situations where all of the elements of filmmaking come together and deliver in a way. Like, the writing is good, the direction is good, the casting is good, the performances are good, the cinematography is good, and the music is exceptional. It's the kind of score that you can listen to while you're doing your day-to-day, and you can watch the movie in your mind. The musical themes are so well tied to the visual storytelling that you don't even need one if you have the other. John Williams utilizes music to represent not only characters, but the shark. They had a lot of problems when they were filming Jaws. The shark did not work most of the time, but you know the shark is there because of the music. Steven Spielberg, this technique he uses in a lot of his films. It's called a oneer, which means it's one shot, but he stages it in a way that you don't notice it's only one shot or that there is no cut during it. A perfect example of this in Jaws is near the beginning of the movie when Chief Brody is going out to talk to the swimmers earning their merit badge, and the mayor and his gang roll up on the barge and have a little conversation with Brody. First of all, it's on the barge, which is moving, so the background is constantly changing. So that already is kind of tricking your eye into thinking you're seeing something different. It starts out wide, and then slowly it gets closer and closer until you're in a two-shot with Chief Brody and Mayor Vaughn talking very intimately. And the scene doesn't cut for 2 minutes. He does it again later in the movie when Hooper and Brody are trying to convince the mayor to close the beaches and they're in front of the billboard. That shot is 3 minutes long, but there are no cuts until the very end when the mayor gets into his car and then we look back and see Hooper sitting on the rock. Forget the money that it made. Like, yes, it was a blockbuster. Yes, people were lining up around the street to see this movie. Yes, it kept people out of the water for an entire summer. All that is marketing, and it's irrelevant, and it's not important. The thing that makes Jaws significant is that it was made in 1975, right at the end of like the old Hollywood industry system. In 1976, the Steadicam was invented, and that opened up all different kinds of doors for the way movies could be made and told visually. And in 1977, of course, Star Wars came out, and that just changed everything in terms of what could be filmed and how it could be filmed. Jaws is really the pinnacle of Hollywood filmmaking up to that point. It's a perfect piece of punctuation for the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. So, if you have seen Jaws, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have not seen Jaws, I still hope you enjoyed this video enough to check it out and, make up your mind for yourself. We'll see you next time.